We're recording live from Eureka Makerspace for GEM's monthly Let's Jam at GEM Industry Talk. Hey everyone, how's it going? We have a great panel set up for you guys today. Before I invite up all the other panelists today, we're going to be talking about wearable tech. We're going to be talking about supply, demand, and we're going to be talking about the actual applications of wearables today. So I want to start off by inviting up Joseph Dolcetti. My good paisan, Joseph Dolcetti. Joseph, thank you. Please come up. Have a seat. Dr. Mazlan, would you please join us up here? Thank you. I've actually known Dr. Mazlan, what, 4 years now? Have we known each other since Bangkok 4 years ago? Yeah, long time. And Xin Yun, thank you very much. Come on up. Last but not least, I want to invite up Edison Lim. Great name. Where are you at, buddy? Yeah. Awesome name. So, guys, please have a seat. Let's get this started. I want to start out real quick. We'll just go down. We'll start with you, Joe. And do me a favor. Let everyone here in the audience know a little bit about you, a little bit about what you're doing, specifically in the wearable space. I'm going to time cap all you guys at about 45 seconds to a minute, and we're just going to keep it rolling.
Hi, I'm Joe. Next. Okay, real quick, I'm Joe. I've been here in Malaysia since the year 2000. I was originally here as the head of high performance for Majelis Sukan Negara for many years, so I was in charge of the training of all of Malaysia's athletes. I come from a sports background. The development of the company and our wearable line is obviously because of that experience. Our area is an area called wearable resistance and performance analysis. And we'll tell you a little bit more about that, I think, as we go. And I'm from Canada, originally. Oh, Canada. Dr. Maz, does someone pass Dr. Maz? Well, I'm like, sorry, we don't have 5.
Okay, my name is Mazlan Abbas. I'm from the company called FAVORIot. If you look at the names itself, it's not pronounced as FAVORIot or FAVORIot. So it's favorite is the right pronunciation. We are a startup company about 11 months old, so it's not that long. So in my case, I've been in the corporate world for many years, in the university also. Only at the end of stage of my career, I get involved into startups, which is a very different world altogether. So our focus now is actually mainly on smart health. So I will be talking more about this later. All right.
Absolutely, a great data-driven space. And some of you guys may know Dr. Maz from Red Tone IoT. That's what he was doing when I first met him in Bangkok 4 years ago.
Hello everyone, my name is Xin Yun, and apparently I'm the only lady in the crowd.
I have a woman's name. I have a woman's name, so I count as half.
All right, I'm the CEO of Walnut Wellness. Our company is called Lead in Health. So we started off as a corporate wellness company where we go into companies and helping the corporate employees to stay healthy with our program. And then through that, we actually develop our own mobile application platform in order to bridge the gap that on-site programs and face-to-face interaction couldn't achieve. And by profession, I'm a pharmacist. So we'll share more about that.
Wow. Yeah. That's awesome. Thank you. And Edison?
Yes, my name is Edison and I'm from Tekla Technology. So what is Tekla? Tekla is actually an item finder that helps you to keep track of your valuable belongings, such as your phones, your keys, your wallet. So we are a startup company as well. We have been starting out 2 years ago, and right now we are trying to expand our team, our market as well. Yes.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Now, I want to start this out because the theme really is wearable tech, supply versus demand, right? And I want to address this from a number of avenues this evening. And I want to really start with what is the supply in the marketplace, not just for wearables, but what is the supply for actually platforms that make use of the wearables, and what's the demand for those from the consumer? That's the most basic way we can do this. And Zhenyu, I'd love to start with you ladies first.
Thank you. So maybe I can share from the perspective of the corporate side, because mainly we are dealing with a lot of corporate companies and when it comes to the employee wellness. So from what we see from our client side, there are growing demands when it comes to wearables. So a lot of the companies are actually looking at wearables to actually help their employees to stay healthy. For example, the basic ones are in terms of tracking steps. So that's the most basic one. And actually some of the phones, our phones nowadays, we can do that. But what we are looking at even is the next step. You know, after wearables basically help us it's more convenient for us to track a lot of data, and but the next stage is about how to interpret it, how to make meaningful interpretation, and also how to help them to stay healthy with that kind of interpretation. So the demand is starting to grow, but it's just that at the end of the day, in order, from my point of view, is that in order to help a person to stay healthy, it's not just about tracking the data, but also about how to make full use of those data and to help people to be healthier.
That's awesome. And we're going to come back to the data quite a bit and how we help people make use of it. Now, I want to jump over to you, Joe, with the same question, though, about the supply and demand, because your wearable is a little bit different than everyone else up here who we're talking about. You've got a great Peter Davis doll up there on the display, but talk a little bit about supply and demand. You're in the kind of high performance space.
Yeah, we are, but we identified that we're actually in the movement space, and the movement space means exercise or movement for anybody. So, of course, we're starting in sport because that's where we're strong and that's where you build a brand, but the rehab side, the tacticals, police, fire, military, and of course, general health and fitness are the big markets that we'll be working on in the future. And each of those, for us, what's interesting is each of those have a different demand for what they want from wearable. Now, just to share with you, like you said, we're a bit different. We're moving into the sensor line, but we didn't start there. So we didn't start with an app, a phone, a watch, or some electronic device that's capturing data. We actually started with the solution that metric gives you. And so a lot of people start with, the interesting thing is, the big question right now is what data is relevant. And there's a lot of data out there. And companies are trying to figure out products based on what consumers want. So you have consumer-driven wearables, and this really relates to supply and demand versus entrepreneur or business or science-driven wearable. Right now, we're still very much from our end see the space as being driven by the entrepreneurs or the business people, the science people. We're telling people what they need and we're giving them that data. But now you're starting to see, and it's just starting to change, that the average person is starting to say, actually, I don't care about that. I really just want this. And things are becoming a little more streamlined. And so we sort of stayed away from developing our sensor tech until we knew this first bubble of supply and demand kind of figured itself out. But we started with the solution, which is the product that actually improves you.
And so you're seeing now that you're able to go a little bit more granular?
Yeah, 100%. You know, we waited till the noise died. We've waited till the initial, you used to get things like, you take a look at heart rate variability. If you're not a physiologist, you probably never heard of that. Unless you have had a heart attack or some similar issue, and your doctor starts talking about things like heart rate variability. But the average person, it's going to be hard to develop a business out of that. But there was a ton of companies getting excited about that. But the reality is, we just need good sort of sleep patterns and heart rate data. So I think it's really exciting right now because it's so new. A lot of it's sort of industry driven out, but a lot of that feedback is now really driving what the next step would be. And I'd be really interested to hear from the other panel side what they see.
Yeah, we are going to jump into that data, like I said. From the supply demand side, I want to jump to Edison next. Talk to me about what you see from the consumer as demand and what you see as supply on the market.
Okay, so because we are a hardware company, it's an item finder. So what we supply is actually to our end user. So before that, I'm not a technology guy. So that we have zero knowledge about technology, even though we have studied a lot on our product. And this is how we get started. We actually saw some good example from overseas. We saw that there's a huge demand on overseas. So we say that why not we bring this product into our home country, because we didn't see something like this before. We try to figure out, we try to go on all these retail shops, and then we didn't see anything similar on our product. So I think that demand is something that you need to have a good study on all these products, even though we have new product, but always improve the product. So you will see a basic product first. if the basic product there's a demand, then we will just go for it, and then we try to improve the functionality, the application, and everything, so that you combine it, become a better product. You will be a 10x product than the previous product, so that you have a uniqueness from the other competitors. And I think there's a demand as well for our product, because people easily get loose of something, they didn't notice it. And also, we tend to misplace our item every day as well. But we spend tons of time to actually find our items. You might not thought of you are someone who will lose your thing every time. But when you are in a rush, you always misplace your item. You always can't find your items.
Always happens.
Yes, always. But we need to come up with a solution, and this is why we come out with an item finder, which is called the Tekla. And there's a good result when we get started, because we start with zero knowledge about marketing the tech product as well. We start for about 12 months, and we sold almost 20,000 units of this tech individually. So we see a huge demand as well, even though like wearables and all this stuff. Yeah.
That's good, because you validated that demand early on. Now, I want to jump over to Dr. Maz, because me and him were talking before the show. We sat down for a bit, and like I said, we've known each other for a few years, so we were getting right into it. You actually have a very interesting product, Dr. Maz, with yours, because you're targeting a very, very niche part of the market, and the demand side is there, has to do with the aging population. So I'd love you to kind of expand on how you validated that demand for your product.
It's quite simple in a way, that because this is the problem that everyone will face. Every one of us, because we will age. You cannot stay young forever.
I'm
right?
trying not to age. I am trying not to age.
So you're going to age, and no one going to be young forever. So what we are facing now, I think what we are seeing here, all the young people here, they might not be old, but their parents are old. So we are seeing this trend of aging population around the world. You can see like some countries is about 8% of the population, which is 65 years and above. And certain countries, even Japan, they have a very big problem of aging population. They can reach up to 20% and above. And the economy is going to be impacted, because all these people are going to age and retire. But where are they going to be? So the trend nowadays, actually, we look at the demand side, actually the trend is they are going to stay at home. We are not going to send our parents to an old folks home. Some culture don't do that. So we cannot send them to the hospitals and stay there for many months. So how do we treat them? And most of these people nowadays want to be independent. They want to stay at home. So by staying at home also brings a different sort of problem. For a working adult like us who's working, you're going to get anxious. What happened to my elderly, my mother, my old father? Is he walking out of the house? And where are they now? Are they in a healthy condition? So these are the things that sometimes we regularly call our parent at home. Hello, Dad, are you okay? So on and so forth. So how do we tackle this problem? Even in China, for example, other than just aging process, as we age, the problem is that we're going to face, because we live longer because of the medical condition and all that, we get a lot of medicines. As we age, but we also get a lot of chronic diseases. Sometimes 1, 2, sometimes 3 chronic diseases. And in China, for example, you just imagine 500,000 people gone missing every day. 500,000 people. And every time they get these people back, 75% still gone missing again. Because this is the problem of dementia and Alzheimer problems. So how do we tackle this problem? So we say that, okay, let's look at one of the market segment, which is the senior citizens, and how can we provide a solutions, especially for the very responsible children who subscribe to the service, give them to the parents. So this is how we want to do that. So that's one of the areas that we are looking at, because I'll talk more later how the ecosystem actually works further than just a normal children themselves, working adult to monitor the children,
Great.
to monitor their parents.
Thanks, Dr. Maz. Appreciate. And I think that's interesting, because like you said, almost everyone here will get older, not me, but everyone else. And we will have to deal with, like you said, our parents, our relatives. Someone will have to deal with us as we age. And it's interesting to see how you validate the different market space, and all of you guys at Edison with his sales, Joe with years of experience, and then not jumping into the sensor space. But I want to go to supply and demand from another aspect here now. Two of you guys up here actually make hardware, and two of you guys have platforms that rely on the hardware of someone else. And when we look at the market for wearables, a lot of the hardware out there isn't interesting, right? A lot of it is not unique. But there's things that are open platforms that have open APIs that you guys can tap into. And then there's guys like Edison and Joe who are making something different in the space. So Edison, I'd like to start with you and talk from a hardware perspective. You're making hardware, right? You're making tech.
Yeah, we are making hardware as well, and also the software.
Yeah, but you're actually making wearables. You're not buying from a third party and bringing it in, correct?
Okay, so once we get started, we actually do not have any fund. We do not have any money to actually develop our own product, which is our hardware. So what we did, we actually purchased this product, and we're actually using their third-party application, which means it's an open source application.
Okay, so you actually didn't make yours.
Yeah, we doesn't make our own. Then after that, when we validate this market and we have sold quite a number of units, then we start to develop our own application, and then we start to develop our own hardware as well.
Okay, so your hardware that you have available now is the one that you've made or the one that you purchased?
Yeah, we actually make it as well.
Okay, so you market validated with a product that you bought, and then you saw that it was a viable model, and then you went into making your own.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, interesting. And so what was that jump like for you, going from purchasing to making?
Okay, we take quite some time. We take about 1 year to actually sourcing all this product. So once we source this product, we try to sell it. So we try to sell it in order for us to have some cash flow for actually generating, to actually run our business. If not, we can't actually survive as well.
Cash flow is a nice thing.
Yes, I think cash flow is very important, especially for hardware company, because you need to buy stock, you need to sell it off in order for you to get back all this money.
A lot of overhead.
Yes, a lot of overhead as well. And then after a year, we start to have some money to actually develop our own applications, which is quite costly as well. So that because we see it as a long-term plan, it is going to be valuable for us for a long time. So that this is why we actually developing our own applications.
From a hardware perspective, an actual wearable hardware perspective, what does your life cycle look like for your wearable?
For my product, it's actually, it can go up to 2 years, 3 years, no problem, because it's just a simple motherboard. And we also provide warranty as well, so that you have a year warranty that we are going to one-to-one exchange for you if any problem.
So about every 2 years, you'll have a newer version available?
Yes, we are thinking about a year, a new version.
Okay, so
because it's a product. People, their interest will be coming down once it hits certain point. So you need to give their hype coming back, so that you need to keep on coming out new product like
You're using that Apple model.
Yeah, like an Apple model, yes.
Awesome, thank you. So, Joe, I want to jump over to you now, because yours is different than anything else up here. And you guys make this, correct?
Yes.
Now, one of the things that I thought was really interesting when we were talking, you didn't get into the sensor space right away. You saw another viability with your market validation. What does your process look like for the build now? And I know we talked a little bit. You can talk about where you're headed with the integration of sensors and whatnot into your wearable.
Yeah, it was interesting for us. Like I said, as high-performance coaches, and that's what we do around the world, our community, we've been focused on providing solutions. So it's important to understand too, data doesn't do anything. Data gives you information. But you have to then figure out, and one of the biggest gaps right now still out there is how do people use data to make change. So there's a lot of companies pushing data. But it's really difficult because you face the same issues still. If it's exercise and health, it's adherence to change in lifestyle, which is difficult. The data may help it make it easier, it helps it make it more user-friendly, but ultimately you still have the same kind of issues. The data doesn't do a lot unless, one, you have coaching education that comes along with that data, and two, you have the actual plan. So tying that data, like let's say a nutrition plan. If you tie that data nutrition that you're monitoring, say snapping a photo of your, that tech is out there now. You snap a photo of your meal, you get a breakdown calorie-wise of that. But how is that going to make you change? Where's the coaching program, the 6 weeks? So from the start, we knew that the change that we were looking for is a very simple thing. It's resistance. And to explain a little more what we do, exercise, if you want to get better in exercise in any way, you need to add some kind of resistance. So people go to the gym. Athletes use weights. They use training tools. And the only problem is we've had a lot of sort of really antiquated equipment that you had to go to a gym to use, kind of bodybuilding focused. Everything has become much more organic. So we created a suit that you could add light resistance as little as 50 grams anywhere in the body, to any muscle group on the body, for any body size. And we were talking right now, we've got customers, some of the people using it are 11, 12, 13-year-olds for postural control and structural problems, to 71-year-olds and older Ironman athlete who are using it to help rebuild knee strength. So it's really, really highly specialized. But what we're seeing right now is this. So we've given them the solution. We have the product that when you wear it, it changes what you do. It makes you better. But now we have a reverse problem because now they're all asking, how much am I changing? I want data now. Yeah, I use this, and we literally have the best programs in the world. We just sold to the Houston Astros this week. We're supposed to be with Real Madrid in 2 weeks. China Olympic Council just bought. It's validated at the highest level of sport and movement right now. But even they're asking, we need to be able to validate. So when we train with your product for 6 weeks, did I improve? And each one of those markets, it's a different improvement marker. For an athlete, it's max speed. For somebody coming off diabetes or cardiovascular disease and they're going back to it, they're going to be looking at weight loss or movement patterns or steps. So we're now, and it was smart for us to wait because we have the solution to make you better. But now we've got to also be able to provide the data so that you feel like you've actually made change. And this is a really interesting thing from our point. People aren't happy feeling better. In the information age, this is something that blows my mind. They know they're better, they feel faster, their blood results show they've improved, but they need a number to validate it. And that's a really interesting thing. At 8 weeks, they want to see a 5% improvement in their walking speed.
Well, I think that's, I don't want to interrupt you, Joe, but I think that's the value of wearables and collecting that data is that you feel better, you look better, you know something is right, but when you have that data, now you like you said, you can validate, okay, this is how much better I actually am.
And that's right. The information has become the value statement, not the change. So they know they're better. Like we get that with, literally a top program in the world, UK Athletics, beat Usain Bolt last year's World Championship with our product. But they had a problem because then when they went to go present to the board, they have to explain what they did. And so the head of strength and conditioning for UK Sport, their 4x1 team won the World Championships when Usain Bolt pulled his leg up. If you watch that race on YouTube, watch the team that won. They were on our product. But after that was done, they have to go and explain and justify why they spent all that money on that product. And they didn't have data that showed that change, but all the coaches knew it happened. And that was really, and so we're realizing so the next funding round, they're buying their second round now, but it's hard for them to validate because people, whether it's a financial decision for, even like an employer spending $200,000 on an employee fitness tracking program, everybody in that company can say, I feel great. But unless you have the data to show that, there's a missing piece now. And it wasn't like that 20 years ago.
I want to jump on one more thing with you, Joe, before I move on to Dr. Mazlan Zinyu, is I know any other wearable up here, for the most part, I open my Huawei watch or an Apple watch, whatever, even like a sport watch, like a Sunto, which I have a Sunto Spartan as well. I understand when I look at it, I put it on, I press a button, it does something, it syncs with my phone, it does whatever. I look at your box here, and I don't know how to use that. What is the UI UX experience like for a first-time user? Do they need a high-performance coach to walk them through how to use it?
Yeah, and those are all the questions that we're dealing with. We're now having to we've got a lot of the high-performance sport validation through very close personal relationships that we have around the world. But now we're saying, we've got a big Series A investor coming on right now. We're setting up around the world. But everybody's asking, when you go to retail, what's going to happen? because you've got to be able to validate. So the part you asked about earlier, so now we're focusing on the sensor development. We have a partnership with the New Zealand government and High Performance Sport New Zealand. We're doing a dual partnership, and the questions we're facing now related to what you say is, one, are we going to partner with a current company for our wearable tech sensors, or are we going to develop our own in-house? I can tell you we're leaning towards developing it and owning our own IP on it. But two, we will explore good partnerships because there are so many companies out there, they're never going to get to market. And I've got half a dozen that we're talking to now with great products that they literally don't know how to get out there, and there's too much space. So it's possible we'll buy in with one of them. But the second one is the platforms. We look at partnering with existing platforms like Training Peaks or Strava. If there's any cyclists here or runners, you've heard of those two. Both of them are interested in working with us already, and they're platforms for user education. But we'll probably also need sort of an amalgamated model where we develop some of our own platforms that can operate for sports or activities that maybe aren't so mainstream. So I think in many ways we're facing these issues now, and it'll be exciting to see how it comes. But I think at the end of the day, we'll look at combinations of the things.
Yeah, because I just, looking at it, I think about it. Of course, I see Peter Davis on a box, I'm going to buy it. And then I'm going to take it home and, maybe I can't figure it out, and that was my one thing. I'm glad to see that you're looking for the right partnerships to make that happen.
Well, and to a large degree, we're a product company, but in these initial days, we have to be an education company. And so education now is app-based platform.
And a lot of startups face that same issue. Now, I want to move on because you guys are actually making your hardware, but I want to move on to you guys now because you're building the platform and then tying into the hardware. So I'd like to jump over to Dr. Maz real quick because you were showing me yours earlier. This is a beast of a watch, but it does a few things here. So walk us through what that decision process is like. You're building a platform. How do you decide which hardware you're going to actually source to roll out to your consumers, and what does that look like from the decision-making side?
Okay, as a startup, I think initially the end game is actually to own our hardware. You must have our own hardware because from there you can control a lot of things. But as a startup too, we don't have that cash just to start off with hardware. Hardware implementation is very costly in a sense. So we also need to validate our market and go to market fast. So what's the approach? The best approach is to find the third party. Actually, we start off with the idea of just fall detection alone. Can we find a device which only can detect fall for senior citizens? Then later we found out there's different fall detection method that need to, sometimes you have to wear at the belt, sometimes you at the neck. So is that the best place to place fall detection? Or someone just don't want to wear it? So what happened is that we feel that maybe it's the watch. And from the watch, we found out, it's more than just fall detection. You can measure a lot of the parameters, blood pressure, ECG, and so on and so forth. So when we look at all the range of hardware out there, we found out there are so many parties, but not all are open. So now we have to find, and the challenge is that, can we work with a party hardware that is more open in giving a set of API to connect to our platform? Our IP is actually the platform that we have. IoT platform that we have called FAVORIOT is where it's a horizontal platform that can aggregate multiple sensors, doesn't matter what kind of sensors, and you can create different verticals of applications. But internally, we said we want to focus on one vertical, is smart health. Other than that, the same platform can be used for other applications. So we also open our platform for different applications for a developer. But to work on the hardware, on the platform itself, so we say that, okay, in this case, the best part is that this hardware is able to measure your ECG. The moment is a single lead, you press it, for 30 seconds, it will measure your heart rate, of course, the heart age, whether you really are 57 or 60 years old. They can also measure your stress level or your mood level. Good, isn't it? And then it has a location.
It measures your mood?
Yes.
So it knows when you're depressed?
Whether you're calm, you're excited, whether you know.
Does it lock your refrigerator so you can't get at the ice cream when you're sad?
So it's a good thing. And it has a location too. So you can geofence it so that you know when your parent goes out. When they come back, you can alert them. You can, even if you feel that you want to call them up, you call them So your mother can answer like a Dick Tracy, answering through a watch. Or if she feels that she wants to call you, just a press of a button, she can directly call you.
It sounds a lot like logistics telematics for old people.
So it makes it simple enough, just wearing a watch. We don't want them to carry one watch and a phone. But the phone should be carried by the children. The children only have an app that monitors the parents. But the idea is actually beyond than this. We feel that not all features have on a single device. That's why we want to work with different parties, different hardware players, who might have different features for glucose or blood pressure, so on and so forth. But then there's a challenge. We are targeting a market which is senior citizens. Senior people are not tech savvy. So how do you ensure that they wear something like this?
Now, that's going to be your biggest challenge, right? Is to be able to get someone who isn't tech savvy, maybe borderline Luddite, to want to wear a wearable.
Yeah, that's why it's a big challenge for us. Do you know whether they open the watch, take out the watch or not? But because the moment you take out the watch, you don't measure any heartbeat. Do you think your parent died? So what's the trick to do that? So it must have a sensors that detects when the watch is open. So then you know the watch is open. Now you know that your parent just take out the watch. So that's why IoT is very important for us to have different sensors inside the watch. But what happened is that when I mentioned about this tackling the senior citizens, that the interesting part is that not necessarily they will wear every 24 hours per day. So what happened when they're in the house? They might say, I just don't want to wear the watch.
And then they forget to put it back on?
Yeah, maybe they tend to forget. But that's the idea of IoT platform, is that the one that we are developing is that it can have sensors in the house that monitors the old lady without them wearing anything.
Maybe they need some type of injectable.
Wearing the watch. Okay.
Maybe they need one of those injectable chipsets.
Yeah, embedded them. Okay.
Or smart pills.
Yeah. So these are some of the things where on the platform side that we are working towards making sure that it's a total solutions, monitoring them. Yeah. But I like the idea of this. You mentioned about that. Actually, it's not nowadays. It's a product-based IoT solutions. It's not product-based. It should be an outcome-based, right? So what's the outcome of the whole solutions that we're providing to the senior people, for example?
Yeah, well, having the proper outcome, I think that ties in really great with Xinyu in your platform, because you're targeting at corporate health, right? Corporate wellness. And I know that you guys are sourcing other hardware as well, right? Does that give your corporate customers, when you look at them, do they want those options, or are you trying to kind of narrow the field for them?
I think when we talk about well-being or health of person, it's a very holistic and a lot of elements that encompasses. It's not just about tracking steps or even about diet per se. It's a holistic well-being of persons. So just now when you mentioned whether they are looking at the wearable side of things or the whole solutions, I would say there's still a lot of education that needs to be done. So that's one of our challenges, because a lot of people, we are only exposed to fitness trackers, for example. We just thought that by taking 10,000 steps a day, you're going to be healthy. But that's not the case.
Are you telling me that's a lie? That's a lie?
No, I wouldn't say that.
My world is crashing down around me.
It's a good start.
It's a good start, but I'm just saying that's not the only point. There's still a lot of aspects of wellness that we are talking about. We talk about stress management, we talk about your sleeping habits, we can talk about even your diet and so on and so forth.
I'm not going to talk about my diet.
So one of the things that we are looking at for our platform is a holistic way of helping people to be healthier. So that's why we are looking at integrating with a lot of wearables that can track different data to help us firstly, to help the users to know about their health. So that's the first step of trying to help them to be healthier.
So what type of wearables, what type of data points are you particularly looking to track?
Firstly are the basic ones, like number of steps, definitely. And then later on, when we are looking at, we are also looking into venturing into diabetes management, hypertension management, all the disease management coaching programs and learning. So at that part, we are looking at integrating with different devices that can even track blood pressure, even blood sugar by just wearing certain sensors. But we do understand that right now, this technology are still quite in a very nascent stage. So along the way, as we build out on the e-learning and coaching platform, which we are specialized in, so we are looking at integrating with all these devices.
So you're really looking to, where you've built your company now, you're looking to kind of build it more vertical as you can add more technologies to your platform?
Yes, definitely. Because right now we choose to start off with by in the outcome base, like what you have just mentioned. Because one thing I realized, I mean, even me as a pharmacist, right now we have all the very advanced drugs and pills. We talk about diabetes management. We have hundreds and tens of pills to treat the patient. But why after we diagnose with diabetes, there's still a lot of people that fell into complications and whatnot, because we are not tackling one important thing, which is compliance and adherence. So even with the best, for example, the analogy is that even with the best wearables or IoTs, if people are not compliant to certain lifestyle habits and so on and so forth to change their lifestyle, they're not going to be healthier by just having a very advanced IoT device and whatnot. So that's the thing that we would like to tackle.
Now, I want to talk real quick. I want to use that actually as a segue, because I know that your platform is big on data. And you talk about compliance and adherence. A lot of times data is seen as kind of the marker to help people get there and track their compliance, track their adherence to it. So let's talk about that data. And I think a big part of the demand for wearables is the demand for data. And like Joe was talking about before, the demand to be able to justify it or to track your improvement. So with your platform, with corporate health and wellness holistically, what is the data that you take forward and present? And what do you see as the biggest challenges as far as presenting the data in the way that is easily communicable to your audience?
Yep. So that's again one of the things that we are trying to tackle when it comes to measuring the outcome or indicators of our platform, because we are basically focusing on e-learning and coaching on our platform per se. So one of the things that we can even track is not all the hi-fi IoT data or whatnot, but it's just when people start to look at all this information. When people start to look at the videos, when people start to interact with our coach, how do they interact? All these data points are also important for us to track whether they have improved from the previous stage. Because when we talk about behavior changing, actually that's one of the most difficult things to tackle, to help people to change their behavior. We need to, from them not wanting to change, we have to push them towards the first start.
How do you use the data to help them change those behaviors though?
We have to use certain ways to actually track where they are in terms of their motivation level. And then through different kind of learning and coaching elements and features, we have to push them towards the next change. And then to prepare them towards the preparing for the change. For example, if one person wants to quit smoking. So if they are not even ready to quit smoking, you can't be talking about them about quit smoking. It wouldn't make a sense to them. So that time you would have shared things that they are interested of. For example, they are probably interested in fitness. And then throughout throughout the fitness coaching and whatnot, we shared about smoking. So when they move to the next stage of motivation level where they're about ready to be changed, that's where we share more things about quit smoking, the benefits of it, and towards that we get to know what kind of source of information to push towards them, those kind of users, and then to push them towards that behavioral change.
So internally, you're using the data that you're collecting to push out different bits of education information.
That's right.
Yeah. Great. That sounds like a good methodology. Maybe I could use that to change my addiction to donuts. It's possible. but not my addiction to mamic food, that's for sure. Edison, I want to jump over to you and talk about what you're doing with data in your wearables. Because you're on the hardware side and the software side.
Yes.
So how are you approaching data from both ends?
Okay, so right now we are more focusing on building our community, which is the lost community, where they keep on losing their things, and also someone who are able to help them to find back their lost item. Yeah, because this community itself is called the crop GPS, while you can actually help others to find back their items, even they are out of Bluetooth range. our product is, there's a limitation, it's a Bluetooth devices. So once you're out of this Bluetooth range, you can no longer find back your items unless someone else can actually help you to find it back. So this is what we are building right now, is a community search. Well, you just have to download our applications, you just have to open our community search, and you can help other Tekla users to find back their lost item. So this is some kind of interesting thing that we are trying to make it more community-based, where everyone must use Tekla applications so that you can help me, I can help you. And you get rewards sometimes maybe.
You can help me find your lost stuff so I can sell it?
Yes.
So you're using data in really a community sense. So
yes,
to drive...
this community is special because you will not know that you are actually helping others to find their items. Because once you pass by, you actually push a notification to our club server, and the user will get the notifications, but not you.
Okay.
After that, you will get a notification.
I'm not motivated to go try and find other people's stuff and steal
But
it.
soon enough, we are going to integrate some reward systems so that you get reward as well.
Okay.
Yes.
Fair enough.
Yes.
Dr. Maz, I want to jump back over to you and talk about the way you're capturing data. And I know we looked at your platform earlier. If you guys haven't seen it, you guys can check out Dr. Maz's platform because it's actually very interesting. It's targeted at the caregiver. Right, the data side is targeted at the caregiver to allow them to kind of stalk and spy on their parents.
Okay. Yeah, the data have many things that we want to do with the data. If you look at the first one is about the alerts themselves. A simple alert can be categorized as three. One is alert that is very periodic, in a sense sometimes you need to remind your parents when to take the next medicine. That's very periodic. Second one is when it happens, so alerts when emergency, when you fall cases, and when they're out of range, you send an alert when it happens. But the best part, when we have enough data that we have gathered, then we can predict the health, even before it happens. So before it happens, before he falls down, you know some of the parameters being measured for quite some time, you know the thing is going to be worse, so you need to prevent it. But the second part is that a better way of using the data is meant to create a better ecosystem. Better ecosystem in a sense that, can I use this data for not only for the children, for other people? I give an example. We are now gathering a lot of this data to convert into what we call favor score. Favor score is usually an index of your health. Are you 30%, 10%, or 100% healthy? So with this favor score, you can work out with your insurance company and tell you, hey, my health is, I'm very healthy. So your insurance can, premium can be lower.
And they trust your numbers?
That's the challenge. But we have to work together with the insurance company and the doctors to verify the value. So with these parameters, we want to do that. But also, like you said, that there are certain things that we can work with. Is anything that happens, it can be triggered to healthcare professionals to give you a second opinion immediately, or even can send to a professional caregiver if there's anything happen.
Well, one of the things you were showing me earlier too is you have a very visualized app, right? So it visualizes quite a bit of the data. Is that to make it essentially easier for the caregiver?
Yeah. The app that is being in the mobile is not meant for the parents. I think the parents still not tech savvy enough to look into the apps and understand what is this. Sometimes your parent is like 65 or 70 years old.
That doesn't work on the flip phone?
Huh?
That doesn't work on a flip phone?
No, flip phone. No, it's a smart app. So what happened is that the carer themselves, the children, will actually use this to monitor them. But the best part is this. It's not only one children that monitors that parent. You can have a number that you generate and can give to other kids.
UN looks a little bit stressed out over here.
To monitor the same parent. Okay? So that's how we do it.
Now, from the visual side, I want to take that and jump over to Joe, because you were touching on your need for data to help your customers validate. And what are you looking at as far as how you're going to visualize that data and put that in front of your customers and your users?
As simple as possible. And that's the other thing is, again, we've sat and watched the complexity of wearable tech go through its start. And you have to be really careful about industry leaders, because industry leaders are usually a mess. They're obsessive of what their industry is, but they don't really represent the thinking of of a general population. So again, you get a ton of people saying, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, we love that. And most people count their steps, you know, and in reality, that's going to be what the general population is going to use. So now you've got to really try and figure out, well, how can we get the most with that step number? So whatever it is for us, people are color proficient and they're number proficient, and we see our system being very clean. Another thing is simple answers. So a person goes for a 10K run, and they finish that run, and we can see your left leg is not activating as much as your right leg. On your next 10K run, the red thigh lights up, and we say add 200 grams of extra load to that spot. Simple. Now, you can't get that past a group of PhD sports scientists. They'll tell you why that's crap, because it's too general. But the end user is getting value from the product, and they're feeling that value immediately. And it's not high-end sports science or medical science, but it's valuable. And
that's the key, is to deliver true value with the data, right?
You know, this is a quote, and I always talk about this in the office, and I think you should apply this to any technical level of skill and industry. I was at a workshop 25 years ago in my field. I've been doing this a long time. And we had a speaker come from outside the fitness industry, and this is in San Francisco at the Moscone Center, the largest fitness show in the world. This guy was a psychologist talking about adherence. And we can talk about adherence because the truth is our data issues that we're facing today are not going to help adherence. That's my prediction.
Why not? Real quick, why not?
Because it's a human issue. The data provides us with something we can use, but somebody still has to use that. And the issues of adherence are still the difficulty of change. And the difficulty of change is neurological, and it's hormonal, and it's environmental, and it's genetic. And until we start affecting things at that level, it's really hard to us to make change in a person. We will, I think, get to a day, well, right now it's a perfect example. Take a look at a hyperactive kid. If I was a young kid now, I would be on so much Ritalin, my parents couldn't afford it, because I'm a hyperactive guy. But you can take a look at an immediate change when you give a hyperactive child a medication, because it has an immediate effect. And it's very much supported by the parents and the family, whatever it might be. That makes an immediate effect on something that kid can't control themselves. That's the kind of thing we're going to get into. You're going to take a look at neurological issues with something like smoking, and someone's going to go in, your data app might say you're smoking too much, you need to quit, but you'll go down to your smoking center, they'll put a brain laser tap that'll sever some need for nicotine, and that thing's gone. But until you can make those kind of changes, the issues of adherence, and I can tell you this because going back to what I talked about, 25 years ago, the fitness industry was talking about obesity. We're talking about it now, and guess what? It's worse. We have more information, et cetera. These issues are getting worse despite the dog food, as we say in the industry, getting better, but the dogs aren't eating. But this guy came out there and he did this lecture, 500 of the world's top fitness experts, and he said, I don't know anything about the fitness industry. I'm not fit. I don't want to stay fit. He said, I smoke, I drink, I eat whatever I want, but I can tell you I've learned everything I need to know about your industry in the first 10 minutes of talking to you guys. He said, if you ask a fitness trainer what time it is, they tell you how to build a watch. And his point being is we're so used to force feeding so much data, but the truth is just you got to give people what they want, and hopefully it's what they need, and it has to be simple. So looking at all that experience, we're really careful not to try and give everybody what Joe, the sports scientist, thinks you need. We're looking at that person who's got 2 times a week to get out and do a bit of fitness. They want to know they're doing the right thing. It's got good safety measures in it, and they can feel and experience that change. And it's clear, and it's simple. And so that's why we kind of waited too for this metrics bubble to burst, because a lot of it is just noise.
Too much data.
Yeah, exactly. And remember, I'm telling you right now, I don't want to sound cocky or pretentious.
Please go ahead.
But like I said, data is not changing our habits. Well, a lot of people will tell you we're going to try and use it, and I think we have to continue on that road. But we still have the same problems with getting people to change habits, because change is difficult, and it's a neurological, it's a hormonal, and it's a genetic thing. And the real adaptation, when that data will really become valuable and effective, is when we then have those outcome measures that are related to, we'll go in there and change that genetic structure so that that person no longer has that impulse. Because for most people, it's just too hard to do. Donuts included.
And that's why I'm going to live forever. So thank you guys. What I want to do now is open it up to the floor for some questions. So if any of you guys have questions for our panelists, I invite you now to come up and ask. Please. Hold on one second. I'll get you a mic.
Yes. Thank you.
Hi. This question is actually about wearables, about technology. Some of the things that we're trying to measure are very hard to measure. For example, blood pressure without a cuff. How are we actually addressing that issue? That's one level, which is a hardware question about where is that wearable tech at the moment, because very important measures from a physiological perspective are not being measured yet. All right, heart rate's easy. You can use skin sensors to maybe measure your glucose level or whatever, but blood pressure, fundamental one, without a cuff, how's that being done? One. Two, at the level of, sorry if I ask a double-barrel question.
I'm going to allow it. It's okay.
Thank you. The second one really is about the fact, and you've touched on this, is really the fact that we can measure anything we like. We are already giving up proxy measures, BMI, for example, 10,000 steps. Actually, physiologists know that's bullshit. But it's better for you to do 10,000 steps than none at all. It's better for you to have something that you can measure in terms of BMI that makes you think there's something that's measurable, and it's important. But at the end of the day, talking about training peaks, for example, if somebody wants to measure FTP, then he needs a coach, because I can read all the books I want about FTP, and I go, listen, I'm going to need to do a 15-minute test. But heck, how the hell do I go about doing that? And how do I measure that? And how do I know whether I'm at 85 or 95 or 105%? I need a coach. So that issue is really what will determine the success, and that's what you're also talking about. And finally, Dr. Mazlan, in terms of telehealth, monitoring remotely, especially for caregivers, of very important measures like blood pressure, like heart rate, like variability, is very important from that perspective. There are huge challenges in terms of real-time monitoring, right? And yes, wearables are going to be that, but you've got multiple channels of information that need to be sent up in real time. How are we going to, get that onto somebody's monitor?
Awesome questions. Thank you very much. I just want to break it down real quick, because I want you guys to address his first question, and then we'll jump into the second kind of two there. But I want you guys to address blood pressure, because that is a key health indicator. But you do need a cuff right now. So are you guys aware of any tech in the wearable space that's measuring that, or that's working to change a big bulky cuff that you have to wear?
Okay, I have to, there's a disclaimer. Dr. Mazlan is not a medical doctor, okay? He's a telecommunications. But anyway, we understand the problem of blood pressure. There are many ways to measure, but the best one is here. So, and you have to sit down with the, with the right angle and so on and so forth. But we're also working with another model which have a blood pressure on the wearable, on the wrist. And there are certain wearables which have a better way of even gripping. The moment it grips you for a certain number of seconds, it will measure. So that is more a medical grade. So the more on the consumer grade, you might have a measurement, but it doesn't give you that accuracy. So of course we understand that. So it depends on the usage of the data. Is it meant for your doctors or meant just for looking at the trends? So that's how we look at it.
Any other of you guys have any insights on blood pressure?
The only thing is, it takes an incredibly long time to validate a new gold standard for any measurement tool. And even though we see data happening quick, that measurement process to reestablish a new gold standard that's actually have enough error or reduction in error that it's actually medically relevant. Because let's take a scenario. We take a grip strength test. Somebody uses that with a person. You get a measure that says, oh, they don't have high blood pressure. 2 weeks later, that person drops dead. And it happens, and this is the kind of real issue. Everybody says, well, why wasn't it validated against the cuff? Well, it was in test stage, and as an example, like from our industry, and I know enough about this, I'm a physiologist myself, when you take a look at something like body fat, everybody knows the gold standard for body fat, taking somebody's body fat, the gold standard, and the only way to really be accurate is you throw somebody in a swimming pool and you look at how much that swimming pool changes in volume, because your fat and your lean tissue will displace water very differently. So you're not going to do that with every person. That's what we used to do with athletes 30, 40 years ago, until they developed, and skin calipers were based off that, but they have anywhere from a 3 to 20% error of measurement. Imagine if skin caliper fat range was medically important. People would be dying. And then they developed dual DEXA, which is your bone scanning. Bone scanning now can give you as good or better a measure of fat rate, but that took 25 to 30 years, and it took almost 20 years just to validate it. So knowing enough about that medical industry, people are saying, why isn't the tech there? The time it takes to get the kind of accuracy out of it, and they're literally just starting. It will take a long time, especially with things that are of critical importance. And I can tell you, no emergency room in the world is going to adapt a heart rate or a blood pressure measure. That's why when you go in there with your doctor, they put a 12-lead ECG on you. They might take that, but that's not what's going to be in the report. You know, they're going to go like this. They're going to go like this. They're not going to look at your Fitbit and say, oh yeah, you're 65. Put that down, please. He's 65. I trust Nike. So I do know it's a really in-depth process, and the data will come out faster. The what do you call it? The hardware will come out faster than the validation.
Yeah, I just want
Xin
to
Yu, you might have some insights here.
Yep, because we do check out a little bit about the blood pressure. I would say it's still in a very nascent stage, and I do agree with both the gentlemen that there's still a long way to go when it comes to the accuracy of the data. Because even like, you know, the ones that we have, the electronic blood pressure, the cuff one, actually that's not accurate as well. Because usually when we do walk rounds with the doctor, when they see they use the electronic and it's high, they sort of suspect something is wrong, then they're going to use back the old traditional mercury blood pressure machine. So that's the case about electronic products. We can't be sure whether how accurate it is. So I would say there's still some time to go to get that in the market.
Yeah, excellent. And now I want to, Dr. Maz, I know he had questions for you specifically about telemedicine in your platform. So I'll give you a chance to address that.
Yeah, the challenge is to measure it frequently and consistently. So that's the best part of IoT, when you have connectivity attached to your device. With this, we actually have a SIM card inside here. So it regularly measure you every 5 minutes. It depends how often that you want to measure your heart rate or whatever. So in certain case, normally even the doctor comes and see you once per hour. Even that's very often, right? But I try to test with my father-in-law. He wants to see that every second. You know, old person tends to see, you know, I don't know, maybe his tendency to look into the measurement. But in fact, every 5 minutes is sufficient enough. So, but there are certain cases where certain sensors are very difficult to get it on the network. For example, glucose. How do you measure glucose? So with blood and all that. So there's another way for doing that. They have a micro needle, a patch. There's a new technique. But then you need a mobile device to tap it and send it back. But it's not consistent. So unless you have something in patch here and consistently send the data out, if you had that?
No, it's,
okay.
It's incredibly tough.
Yeah, I've seen some of those glucose patches in use with the NFC chips on them.
Yeah.
But I've seen reports that they have incredibly high error rates, sometimes as high as 80%.
Yeah.
So if something has an 80% error rate, I'm probably not even going to try it. Now, I think we have time for one more question. So if someone else from the audience would like to ask the last question, I invite you. We go right over here. No, you. Yeah, you. There you go.
Hi, I have a question for Joseph. Actually, I was in the IT lab for 18 years in transition for running coach. I'm doing running coach for full time for next month. So I want to ask for virtual coachings. Okay, so now in the market they have virtual runs, virtual coachings. Is it actual coaching play an important role in the versus the virtual coachings for the data? I mean, yeah.
Yeah, can I do one thing? Because he asked a coaching question too, and I think I can actually combine the answer for both.
Absolutely, please.
Yeah, so what I think people also have to understand is that use of data. And this is what, it goes back maybe to wrap up from where you started with, you know, market supply and demand. I think all of us here on the panel see different levels of market engagement. There are some people who say like, dude, I just want to buy a pair of your shorts. I just want to know where I got to put the load to get my glutes. And they do that 3 times a week. They'll have a very low end need for.
Guys say that to me all the time.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, maybe that was the wrong one, but you never know. It's a modern era now. We're all equal, so it's all good. But there's a very simple, and they literally want a color code, and because they've got 45 minutes to think about it. Then the gentleman here, he sounds like somebody who's had some experience in the endurance world, a little more dedicated to their sport and their craft, have real goals, put money and resources and time to those goals, and they need a higher level of attention. And so they ask, and we get those guys all the time. And that's that first level of person who's an Ironman athlete or whatnot, and they have a need for a coach, and they're willing to pay for sort of your next level of service, where they don't just want their heart rate monitored and to be told, yeah, generally you're okay, thanks for your $9.99. Now they actually want some profile, and they want to engage with experts. And so that's a big problem for us, and Training Peaks is there's a lot of data out there and people wanting more from what's happening. You have to, whatever your industry, engage with the expert to understand that data better, and you have to self-guide it right now. There's not a lot of companies that I think can really do it. You've got to sort of do that on your own. And then virtual coach versus real coach, real simple on that. A virtual coach will probably meet 70% of your needs, but if you fall outside that for anything reason and you have that area, that's where the one-on-one contact literally is invariable. And it also depends on you. Are you kind of a demanding, excuse my language, I won't use it. Are you?
Go ahead. This way I don't be the one to use the worst language.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Are you a demanding person who wants a lot from your coach? If you are, you better not use a virtual coach, because you're going to be yelling at your computer 24 hours a day. And I know I work with a lot of coaches, and again, like a coaching platform, virtual coaches are great because they can get a lot of people out there. And if you're trying to develop it, I think segment yourself. You will have people that will want your time, charge them for it, and 80% of the people will want 20% of your info. So hopefully that adds a little bit of what you were saying.
I think just to cap that up and tie this into perhaps a future session that you and the good people at GEM can maybe put together is, with the data side, there is always a need for some human intervention at some point, right? Especially from whether it's sports or medicine, and that is a limited resource. Our human resources are very limited. And I think as we're seeing an advent of AI, and a lot of AI being used in the health space, things like IBM Watson, right? There may be a space in the future where there is a virtual assistant or a virtual coach that's an AI coach that comes online and gives you very tailored specifics.
Confirm that'll happen. And that's,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that AI space married with this wearable space, with this biometric information space is very key. With that being said, I want to thank all of the panelists here today for coming on. I want to thank all of our guests here for coming and joining us, as well as all of the good people at GEM, at Magic, and everyone at eFM. If you're not listening to eFM.live, I don't know what you're doing with your time, but it's not the right thing. Thank you very much.
Dana, just before you go, we've got a policy in the company. We always try and give something back. So I'm going to share one little thing with all of you that you can take home tonight, that you can use in your lives starting tomorrow to hopefully make them a little better.
If it's don't eat donuts, I don't want you to say it.
Donuts are awesome. Just these two things. First up, you got to remember this, and we've worked at this level with athletes for a long time. There are old people who smoke, there are old people who drink alcohol, and there are old people who are fat and eat poorly. But what you don't get in life is old stressed out smokers, old stressed out drinkers, and old stressed out fat people. So you got to learn to control stress if you want a healthy life. That really is the number one killer. And the second thing is, the most important thing for health is circulation. Honestly. Everything that you go and do health related is about circulation. And the simplest way to get circulated is to move. So on a daily basis, if you're not moving, you don't have a healthy lifestyle. And that doesn't mean going to the gym, it means moving, okay? Think about that. Blood was designed to move, lymph is designed to move, digestion's designed to move, neurons are designed to move. When they don't, and you sit on end for long periods of time, you're getting unhealthy. So you don't have to be a psycho, you just gotta move.
Some great advice, thank you. Let's Gem at GEM, wearable technology.